Good Thursday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready for that final preseason game against the Bears on Saturday. Earlier today, Kevin Stefanski announces formally his plans relative to who will play as far as the starters go and how he will determine exactly how long starting quarterback Jacoby Brissett plays against the Bears.
Jacoby's going to play. The starters are going to play. We'll see for how long. Play that one kind of. We have a number in mind, but play that one by ear. But Jacoby will play.
Do you think it'll be closer to a half or closer to maybe one quarter?
Good question. We'll see.
Chicago, Coach Eberflus said this week that he was thinking 25 to 30 snaps for his guys. Are you thinking about matching up with that, or?
Yeah, I know what Coach Flus is doing. We're going to do our own thing.
Kevin, when you talk about game planning a little more for this game, is it a collaborative game plan with Chicago?
With their coaches in mind?
Yeah.
No.
You guys say, we want to do this, and then he can...
No, we still have some agreements in terms of goal line and onside kicks and those type of things, yes.
Kevin,
Is it Conklin someone that's ready to get a few reps in a game, or would it be best to just wait until September?
Yeah, Jack's not going to play in this game, Mary Kay, but he's really doing a nice job. He's progressing.
Kevin, when it comes to how long the starters, Jacoby play, is it a feel thing? What are you looking for when you kind of decide, it's time to kind of go to the bullpen?
Yeah, I think we want to see what we do in the drives that Jacoby's in there. If we feel like he needs more time, if we feel like he needs certain plays, full speed in a game setting, we'll do that. But it's just a constant communication with the coaches to make sure we get what we need.
Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier. So Quincy, the need to play Jacoby Brissett. Hadn't played in this system with these guys for Kevin Stefanski. So I think he probably needs to play a couple of series. Just your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's probably going to play. I think they put Baker in there last year for about 2 or 3 drives. I think 2 drives. They scored on the second one. He was done for the rest of the day. So I think that's on the short side of what it looked like. Deshaun, he got 3 drives last time, and it went about as bad as it could go, and that's probably the length that they're probably willing to go to, 2 or 3 drives, right? If it looks really good after 2, they're probably not going to risk it and go a 3rd drive. If they feel like they need some extra work, they'll give him an extra drive, but then it's going to be Josh Dobbs and Josh Rosen. The Joshes for the rest of the way is what I would think. Based on how he's handled these situations in the past, it would only make sense for this to be how he goes about it.
And again, he's kind of measuring, the risk of playing these guys in a game that means nothing versus getting hurt. So Kevin Stefanski talked about seeing Jacoby Brissett hit his hand on somebody's helmet in practice, and that whole risk of playing starters versus the, potentially getting hurt in a preseason game.
Yeah, I was seeing red for a minute there. That's a rule. Our guys have done an awesome job all camp of staying away from the quarterback, and we just have to continue to do a good job there. I don't know if there's one correct way to do it. We're just going to do what we think is best. Felt like Jacoby should get some reps out there, get some snaps out there with the ones in a game setting, but he's doing a really nice job getting a ton of reps out here as well.
Quincy, I know on your show you've addressed this. Why do you think the Browns should stick with Jacoby Brissett? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of good reasons. One of the interesting things Kevin brought up in there, because everybody's focused on you don't want to hurt your own teammate. Yeah, that's true. Another reason why the coaching staff is going to harp on any guy running into the quarterback, you don't want to get them into the habit of overplaying where their feet are and then actually getting a roughing the passer penalty too. Like, that's part of the discipline in there, because how many drives have been extended because of something dumb like that. But yeah, why the Browns should stick with Jacoby Brissett is an interesting conversation, because I think, one, we overplay how good the other options can be sometimes at this point, right? Like, we think that everything else other than what we have is a better option, but in reality, they're all the same caliber of option, and this is the one that we've been committed to the longest. So Jacoby Brissett, he knows the offense. He's been in the system for a while. He's the guy that you've been preparing since May. There's nobody so good that's out there that warrants taking off all of that work that you've done for the last 6 months, getting Jacoby Brissett ready in case of a Watson suspension. And they're so good that they justify just wiping that all out just to put somebody else. else in there. So, Jacoby's the guy that they want to go with. His skill set is not super limited. He's not going to be the greatest quarterback in the world. But, if you feel like you can get Brian Hoyer won 7 games in 10 or 7 and 11 that one year with Cleveland. We've gotten there with worse quarterback play before. And he's not terrible. You know what I mean? Like, he's not bad, and I think there is some upside to be gleaned from him in this situation. So I'm excited to see what you can get out of Jacoby Brissett. I think the Browns are too.
So Peter King was on the Dan Patrick Show, and he was talking about how Kevin Stefanski has handled the whole uncertainty with the Deshaun Watson situation, as well as his thoughts on the Browns quarterback situation. Here is Peter King from the Dan Patrick Show.
They've done a good job starting with Kevin Stefanski, who basically is allowing Andrew Berry, the general manager, and the Haslams to handle all this stuff. He's just handling, it's the proverbial control what you can control, Dan. That's what Stefanski's doing. Jacoby Brissett is, when I say he's blissfully unaware, I had a conversation with him. It's all like he just, that's not part of his job, so he doesn't really care. He cares, but he doesn't really concern himself with it on a day-to-day basis.
Jimmy Garoppolo joining the Browns, any traction on that?
I think it's unlikely. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think the Browns believe that a quarterback coming onto their team for a significant amount of money early in the year is going to have any impact at all, because he won't know the system. He'll have to learn on the fly. He's not significantly better than Brissett in their eyes anyway. I would have thought that I still think they may pick up somebody or trade a 7 for somebody if they have to, a lesser quarterback. Like Mullins gets traded the other day from the Raiders to the Vikings. That would have been a guy. He knows Kevin Stefanski's system. It's that kind of deal, like a conditional 7th for somebody's third string quarterback. They could do that.
Okay, so Quincy, that sounds like a great idea. So we decided to take a look at some of the names that are third-string quarterbacks. It is not a great list by any stretch of the imagination. Case Keenum was here. You see Bridgewater, I don't think that's going to happen. Mike White. Flacco's going to end up starting. You mentioned Brian Hoyer. I don't think that's going to happen. You get down Mason Rudolph. Yeah, I'm not jumping up and down about that. That could be a guy. Chase Daniel. There is not a lot of names that are likely to be available as you look through those. None of those guys, none of the third stringers really intrigue me. They're all young. And the whole purpose of getting somebody in is to get somebody who has potentially started and has significant experience, because Josh Dobbs has only taken 17 snaps. So while that sounds like a great idea, I had a tough time finding a name there. And those were all of the depth charts of quarterbacks. Do you got a magical name you can drop on us that might make sense?
I got a secret I could tell everybody. And this is top tier information for anybody watching this live. There is no such thing as a good option for your third string quarterback. Like, there's no third string quarterback you're like, yeah, let's see. You know what I mean? There's a reason why they are at that point. You're not going to feel much different about Josh. Honestly, you might feel much better about Josh Dobbs going in there than you would if you threw Matt Barkley out there, right? Like, because at least Matt Barkley's bad. Like, Josh Dobbs, you don't know what that is. Only 17 snaps. He might be okay, right? I think people mistake familiarity at the quarterback position with, skill at the quarterback position. And that's what this whole conversation has been, is people swapping out Jacoby Brissett, a name they're not familiar with, swapping out Josh Dobbs, a name they're not familiar with other names of other quarterbacks who are seen at the same tier, but these are guys that we're familiar with, right? It's just a familiarity game where they just, I don't know what Josh Dobbs is. Well, at the point when you're at your third string quarterback, would you rather know that you have a third string quarterback, or would you like to take the chance that you might have somebody who could be a second string quarterback back there? We don't really know what Josh Dobbs is. And he's not gonna have the opportunity to let us know who he is unless he has an opportunity to play. And we can't let somebody not play because they haven't played, because then nobody gets experience that way, right? So I've heard people freak out about this. Quincy, what do they do if they get to the third string quarterback? They panic like they did last year and just hope they can hold on and win a game. Like, what do you mean? What does any team do when they get to their third? What's Baltimore going to do if it comes down to what they got? They got two quarterbacks there, one backup, and then I think they have like nobody there in third string. Like, what's any team gonna do if they get to their third string quarterback is the real question. And once you get to week 11, you feel good about Dobbs as a third string quarterback. I think we have over dissected the Browns quarterback position to the point to where we're really talking about trade value for third string quarterbacks on national TV too. Like, that's Peter King. Like, it's not me doing it on my YouTube channel. That's like people big business, you know.
I loved the idea. I'm like, all right, Brian, let's go find some of these third string quarterbacks. And we're looking at him. I'm like, yeah, this is not a good idea. It's
like going to the Claire's rack at TJ Maxx. Like, oh, okay, this is why this is the Claire's rack at TJ Maxx.
Pretty much.
It sounds like a great idea. Get 2 T-shirts for $5. Do you realize that's why one of the sleeves are significantly longer than the other? That's why this is in the TJ Maxx clearance rack.
All right, some news from J.C. Tretter. There was talk that, would the Browns be interested? Would Buccaneers be interested? Well, today J.C. Tretter announced that he is retiring. Says he's decided to stop playing on his own terms. He plans to continue his work as the NFLPA president, push for even more progress on behalf of the players in the NFL. He did say in a Sports Illustrated interview that he believes his involvement in the union has kept teams away from him. But again, J.C. Tretter, former Browns Packers center, president of the NFLPA, the Players Association, announces his retirement. It's probably very true that his union stances and things did keep teams away. I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, the most famous one he has is where he pretty much told people, hey, don't show up to voluntary OTAs, which is not going to go over great with coaches, which I understand why him being the NFLPA president, especially at that time where they're trying to negotiate more rules for what the safety protocols were going to be for the 2021 season. He had to use that as some kind of leverage. So, it put himself in an awkward spot, but as far as if you're concerned about NFLPA president leadership stuff, I mean, that's the ultimate sign of a great leader, somebody who is willing to make a very unpopular decision, make a very unpopular stance that he believes is going to be for the betterment of that program, and willing to suffer the consequences. I mean, he's not really crying about it. He's like, yeah, it's probably keeping me out, but I'll just retire, focus on being the NFLPA president. And just very respectable behavior from J.C. Tretter, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Somebody's got to do that as the players' union rep, and he did certainly suffer some consequences in all likelihood. Quincy and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We will head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today. Some thoughts about Joel Bitonio. We'll also take a listen to what we think we've learned from the Browns' joint practices. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Joel Bitonio, his statement about it being Cleveland against the world with the booing fans in Jacksonville.
Pat from Youngstown, just commenting on what Joel Bitonio said, us against the world. You know what? I agree with it, and I'm down with him on that because it's always been us against the world. You know, because we've been 0-16. You know, even going back to when Myles Garrett, before he was drafted, he was hoping that Dallas rescued him before we drafted him because, you know, it was a common thought that, you know, we were going to draft him. You know, we were the laughing stock of the NFL, you know, and we were called the Factory of Sadness. But we're no longer called the Factory of Sadness, but we are a controversial football team in the NFL. Look what's going on with us with Deshaun Watson. But hey, I'm cool with it. Yes, thanks for taking my call. Love the show.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, if you're in that locker room, it's usually us against the world, so I got no issue with Joel saying that. He's going to stick up for his teammate. Those guys are like family while they're together for, 18, 20, 26 weeks out of the year when you get training camp and the regular season together.
Yeah, what else is he supposed to say? You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to ask him how's he going to react to the booing, he has to say, we got to just rally against it. It doesn't mean it's a rallying call for anybody in particular, but you have to do your job. And, it's kind of he was just relating it to the adversity that you face amongst the crowd being the opposing team anyways. And he's just acknowledging that certain factors might crack that up to 10. Still got to play through it. Still got to rally against it. It's still, you got to come through and beat it. The Browns aren't going to, there's some realities here with that, right? Like the Browns aren't going to get the benefit of the doubt nationally by a lot of people. And people's feelings about Deshaun Watson, the money he was paid, and the fact that they feel like he didn't pay a big enough consequence to them is going to affect how they cover this team, how they talk about this team, and how they talk about the players on this team, whether they admit it or not. It's just going to have an effect. And we've seen plenty of articles pointing to this where people are being called terrible players now that weren't terrible players like 4 months ago, right? So it's the nature of it. The Browns are not the feel-good story in the NFL. And when that is the case, for whatever reason that is, it's your job if you're on that team to kind of block out the noise and make sure that you and everybody in that locker room is on the same page to win as many games as possible.
Yeah, and you know what? That's fine. Sometimes it can have the effect of bringing a group together. So let's see how that works this season with the Browns. All right. What again? This is I know you've addressed this on your show. Quincy has his own show on YouTube as well. Google Quincy Carrier. What did we learn from the Browns' joint practices?
Yeah, that was an interesting one, right? We learned that some reporters from the Eagles might be having a hard time seeing things objectively. But we've also learned that if there's some things to be concerned about with this team, right? Penalties still popping up. Don't like that. They were not a penalized team in 2020. 2021 were very penalized. So far as offseason, still being penalized a lot. I'm worried about that. That's a bit of a concern. This offense especially cannot afford to have procedural penalties. Can't have illegal procedure, can't have false start, can't have holding, can't do anything to can't do anything to put yourself behind the sticks. Can't do it. They have to be more crisp in that area. I thought like you found some good things out. Quarterback play, I think you're going to be fine. Running back depth, I think is just insane. It's insane. But running back depth and DB depth is just insane on this team. Offensive line depth is also equally as insane. It's just we don't know those players by name. A lot of us, they're not household names, but they're really good players they have there on the offensive line. I mean, Chris Hubbard might not make the team, and that tells you everything you need to know about the depth on this team and the flexibility of some of those players. But you flip over to the other side of the ball. Well, you flip over to some problems. Wide receiver depth, issue, right? It is a issue. You are a couple snaps away from running out Anthony Schwartz and David Bell, or David Bell and Anthony. It is a combination of wide receivers that I am not comfortable with right now, and that is an issue, right? And even if Amari Cooper is out there, he's only one man. It matters who's next to him. DB room, I feel like is fine. And this red zone offense, if something stops the Browns from getting 5 wins, I think it might be the red zone offense, because this is where I feel like the offense has the ability to struggle, because running the ball becomes much harder in the red zone because you have less space and less room for flexibility, and throwing the ball becomes very difficult in the red zone. And that's one of the things I don't project the Browns to be great at, is throwing the ball into tighter windows, right? They want to scheme things open. It gets real hard in that red zone area, and they don't really have any wide receivers other than David and Njoku who you feel like can box up and get you one in the red zone, right? Just throw a fade and let them catch it. They don't have wide receivers like that, and we have seen this in the past with Shanahan-style offenses, that they can get up the field real well, but when it comes to red zone execution, when the quarterback play is not up to par, that's where they tend to stall out a lot. So those are my main concerns with this team. What I feel like I learned, what I feel like I've kind of confirmed about this team so far throughout the joint practice week. It's going to be a good team. And we're talking about second level issues here, right? Back in the day, we used to be like, man, well, the Browns can't block, they can't run. We would talk about all the things they can't do. Now we're talking about the things that they might not be doing at an elite level and how they can overcome that to become a good team.
So here's a question for you and a thought along those lines. Red zone, I agree with you. They got to get a little different. So 2 backs. The other thing I think that you can do is use Harrison Bryant or David Njoku and split them out. If you use Bryant out of, split him out wide, he's a bigger body who has the ability to use his body like Njoku. I like 2 backs. Hunt is really good in the red zone. So those are my thoughts on how to improve your red zone efficiency with Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, and it's possible too. Baker Mayfield's not like the greatest quarterback in the world. He has a pretty good red zone touchdown to interception ratio. But the concern there is just, hey, they got to get more creative there with that when they're in the red zone. They have to figure out more things, and it's going to take a lot more work. That's what Deshaun Watson provides to you, is once you get to the red zone, you don't feel like you got to work that hard to get the ball in. With Jacoby Brissett, there's going to be work there, right? It's going to be a little bit more difficult. You're going to see them do those little half tight end screens where they look like they're about to be a halfback screen and the tight end cuts the other way and they try to throw it over the top of the line. They're going to do some of those. They're going to do some of those pitch plays where the tight end runs like a quick seam. They're going to do a lot of these plays, and they're going to have to get creative. I know fans are going to be frustrated with this because, whenever you get the ball on the 20-yard line, people just think you should run the ball 45 times until you score. But I don't know if that's going to be possible, right, when you just don't have the amount of space that you could lose guys in there. And running the ball on the goal line is one of the hardest things to do on the football. It's why it's not being done more and more often. So, it's one of those things where they're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to be smart, and they're going to have to be real. Those red zone possessions are precious. They can't waste them.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, NFL Network, NFL.com will announce their top 20 players for 2022. Myles Garrett is in there. We'll see where. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. So the NFL's top 100 players will wrap up with the top 20. It'll be announced Sunday. Here are the top 20 in alphabetical order. Among them, under the G's, Myles Garrett. So Pro Football Talk tweets this out, and if you've seen the promo, you can hear Myles Garrett saying, "I think I should be number one on the NFL's top 100 players." Quincy, I love the thought. When a guy as talented as Myles Garrett is willing to come out and say, "I think I should be number one," that means he's coming out and he's playing up against it from the get-go.
Yeah, Myles has been so fun to watch throughout his time in Cleveland because when he got here, it almost seemed like he was unaware of the fact that he had football superpowers, right? Like he didn't know that he was the Incredible Hulk. And now when you talk to Myles, he is very aware of the power that he has, right? He is a very confident, calm individual. When you talk to him, he kind of gives you confidence by proxy, right? Because he's just such a confident dude. And it's just nice to see that evolution in him. And when athletes get that level of confidence in themselves, where it's a good balance between, it's not arrogant. He's not being arrogant about anything, but he is confident in his ability. It usually leads to excellent things on the football field. And I think that's what everybody's seeing. I mean, like everybody who watches the tape tells you that Myles Garrett, if he is just the best defensive end in football, point blank period, best pass rusher in football, because he just has this freakish athletic ability. He has the length, he has the skill, the ferocity. He has it all at that position. And it's crazy. We went from greatest left tackle of his generation, and we might get the best pass rusher of his generation right after that guy retires, right?
Yeah, without question. So Myles Garrett was with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah today at the podium addressing the media. Garrett, on the approach he has on the field.
I'm going to be the best wherever I'm at. So that's either on my team or in NFL. That's always my goal. And there's nothing wrong with competing with your teammates. And I won't always be the best player on the field in the game, or even on my team. There'll be a time where I have to, play my spot, and I'll be holding up a double or a triple or getting chipped, and he's going to rise to the occasion and be that force that takes over the game. And so whenever he needs to step up, I know he will, and I'll be there when the time comes.
Myles, kind of along those lines, the more time you get to spend with Jeremiah on the field, what do you think his potential is? Have we even realized that yet?
Before you go, I do want to throw this out there. I'm nowhere near this type of caliber of player, so I shouldn't even be in the same sentence. But he can answer the questions. I just want to throw that out there.
Just his potential. What do you think it is from being out there on the field with him?
I think saying sky's the limit is cliche, but this guy, he does everything well. I think just a little bit more play recognition, and I think he will be one of the best linebackers in the game, just because he has the pass rushing ability. He's able to come up and make hits in a run. He's not scared of going and face anybody in the hole. He doesn't really have any deficiencies in his game, and any of the weaknesses that you do think apply just from looking at him. Mentally he's all there.
And again, Quincy, I tend to agree with Garrett more so than Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. It's almost like he doesn't realize He's kind of where Miles was, as you alluded to. You're pretty good, guy.
Yeah, he's realizing his superpowers, and all I'm gonna say is watching those two stand in that interview like that kind of reminded me of Ed Reed and Ray Lewis when they would do those joint interviews with each other all the time during camp. But we'll see if they can live up to that billing. But that certainly has the potential to be the new school version of that. But yeah, the sky's the limit with JOK. Just athletic, quick, smart, one of the best linebackers in this class. I mean, if Micah Parsons is not in that class, you're talking about probably the best linebacker in that class. It just so happens that Micah Parsons turned out to be an absolute freak from Penn State. But yeah, it's great that you have those two, and it's great that they have that bond because they're going to be lined up in the same gaps over top of each other, and their chemistry is going to matter a lot for sacks. I mean, remember the Chicago game where Miles was kind of holding the gap. He didn't realize it when JOK shot through and got the sack, and they had to share it together. That can happen a lot if the chemistry gets great between those two. And, we've seen it in this division. When the chemistry is great between your two best or most talented defensive players, like a Ray Lewis and an Ed Reed, or like a Troy Polamalu and was it Joey Porter? I don't know who Pittsburgh's second best player was during that era, but like Troy Polamalu and his hair, it leads to great things defensively, right? So that's a great thing to see that they have that bond, that they have that comfort with each other, because that can only mean good things for this defense, because they're going to need it, right? We're going to need this defense to do all the heavy lifting we can during the first 11 weeks of the season. So, it's good to see that.
Yep. From all accounts, they look ready to take that on. We'll see. All right, before we go to break, 3 biggest storylines heading into preseason week 3. This is from Dog Pound Daily. Number 3, will the Browns enter the defensive tackle market? Number 2, how will the back end of the wide receiver room pan out? And number 1, are there any running backs from that insanely crowded and talented running back room on the move? Let's start with that one. I can't, unless they get a trade offer that they think is really good, I can't necessarily see them trading one of those running backs for a 3rd or 4th round pick. 2nd round pick, maybe.
Yeah, I think people are thinking the Browns might not keep 4 running backs, but I think this is what I would think they're thinking is that, hey, if somebody wants to trade for Dearness Johnson, hey, blow us away, give us a fair offer for him, and then we'll consider it. But if you don't want to give a fair offer, they're not going to get rid of him, and they'll just get rid of like a Johnny Stanton and just not carry a fullback and have 4 running backs. So, the Browns have flexibility at that position. Obviously, when you're that deep at a position, I mean, poor John Kelly, he really should be a factor in this conversation, but the room is just so good, and he's not bad. He's just not as good as Kareem Hunt, right? And that's like a crazy bar that this is. Well, I mean, Kareem Hunt, if you look at all the running backs that played last year, had the lowest yards per carry at like 4.8. Everybody was above 5, which is a ridiculous number, right, for the Browns to have. It's just unfortunate for him to be the 5th man in this conversation because, I mean, there's stud after stud after stud after stud. And then Demetric Felton's there somewhere, right, as a wide receiver. He got pushed out the room, unfortunately. So, it's just going to be tough, but I think they find a way to keep all of them.
What do you think? Do they go out and try to get a defensive tackle, a veteran guy, or do they comb the 53-man when the cutdowns are there to see if there's anybody they can plug in? Or you think they're riding with what they got?
This is another one of those familiarity versus ability arguments, right? Because we all want Ndamukong Suh, because we know Ndamukong Suh used to be good, but is that really who they should go after? I think they probably have their eyes on somebody who's going to get cut, hopefully a bigger body from somebody's camp that's going to get cut because of depth and all of that. But I would expect at least one extra body from a different team. But I don't think it's going to be, a veteran. They're not going to call Gerald McCoy or Ndamukong Suh or whoever is the old guy at the week that we say that they have to call at whatever position, right? We got like 3 at wide receiver. We're like, oh, they got to call T.Y. Hilton every time something goes wrong. So no, it's not going to be anybody you're familiar with, but it will be somebody, I'm pretty sure, from the bottom of a roster that's going to be in here.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we will hear what Myles Garrett thinks about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Also, expectations for the Browns this year. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. So Myles Garrett, again, talked to the media. What he's seen from the Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah coming into his second season with JOK listening very closely.
I think he'd be a big-time player, honestly. He very well using his frame. Even though he's a smaller linebacker, I wouldn't say that he plays any smaller just because he's great at throwing his weight around. He's great at using his hands, and he flies around like at such a high speed. He makes up for that lack of power that sometimes you can't get if you're not moving off the ball. But I think he, as long as he, stays within the frame of the defense and he keeps on polishing up those moves, he can be a really great talent for us.
Jeremiah, what have you learned from Myles in a little over a year with him?
Well, everything you see me do, I learned from this guy. Whether it's the shedding, whether it's on the line and the certain moves that he does, I kind of try to model my game after him. He's taught me a lot in reference to hand movement and the fundamentals of the game, whether it's being patient on a run, being patient on even some passes where he has to drop back. I learned some stuff from him. So he's a great mentor, great guy to learn from, and even off the field, he's taught me some stuff. So.
Quincy, the other thing that strikes me is all of the younger guys talk about how all of the veterans on this team are willing to help. That's not necessarily the case on all teams, but it seems like it is with the Browns.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because usually in teams where that happens is usually you either have really old veterans that, know they're at the twilight of their career and they're willing to help. This is a situation where the Browns don't really have a lot of old veterans. I mean, they joke around and call Jacoby Brissett an old head because he's 29, because this team is still very young. So it's rare to have young vets, just in the middle of their career, in the middle of their prime, still willing to help out. And I think Anthony Walker and his influence and his reputation has done a lot for that.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, I know, again, you've addressed this on your show, Quincy Carrier. You can search it on YouTube. Expectations for the Browns this year. What should fans expect? What do you expect?
See, I have broken this, one of my favorite shows is Better Call Saul, and they break up these seasons into 2 parts now, where it's hey, here's the first part of the final season and the second part. This is what the Brown season is, right? We got 11 episodes of Jacoby Brissett, and then we get the 6 Deshaun Watson episodes at the end of the year, right? There's going to be a clean break there. And I think you have to look at this season and break it down into those chunks. What do you expect out of those 11 games? I expect at least 5 wins from those 11 games. So that's what my expectation is for that game, for that part. Deshaun Watson, right? What do you expect for those 6 Deshaun Watson games? I would expect at least 4 wins from Deshaun Watson. So that means my lowest expectation for this team would probably be at 9. But The thing with expectations, we always talk about expectations as if the expectation we have right now has any weight in the future. But the reality of an expectation is that an expectation is more like a stock price where, yeah, it's that today, but it can be anywhere else, tomorrow or the day after. You can get to 9 wins and be disappointed with it, even though you expected it, because how they got to 9 wins might have been unsatisfactory, right? The Browns won 8 games last year, but we were significantly less happy winning 8 games than we were when we won 7 games in 2018 because of how the ride that you got to those wins, right? So expectations, they change with how you get through the ride. If the Browns start off 4-0 and they only get 5 wins in that 11-game stretch of Jacoby Brissett, people are going to not feel great about it. If they start off 2-2 and somehow get 5 wins, we're going to feel awesome about it, right? It's all about the ride that really determines how we feel about what the expectations were, more so than the expectations dictate the ride.
So Donovan Peoples-Jones talked just about what he has seen from Jacoby Brissett and kind of how things are going with the Browns starting quarterback for those first 11 games.
Yeah, it's been good. Just building chemistry, getting better day in and day out.
We were talking yesterday, and guys keep saying he's funny, and he keeps fighting the idea that he's funny. What do you think?
He's a funny guy, I would say so.
What makes him?
Just a funny personality.
Donovan, it seems like guys have really gravitated towards Jacoby. Why do you think that is? He seems like a pretty genuine person, I guess.
Yeah, he's a cool guy in the locker room. He's always himself, so even over the offseason when we were, getting together, and then even in the OTAs, he's been that, his personality is probably easy to get along with. Yeah. Just going out there, continuing to work the things that we've worked this whole training camp, continuing to cross our T's, dot our I's, and just go out there and compete.
Go ahead. Do you find those preseason reps to be more valuable? I mean, I know you're out in practice all the time, but is there something extra about those preseason reps to get you ready for the season?
Well, it's definitely in-game mode, with the stadium, with the fans, fan noise, more realistic drives, I guess you could say, more realistic opportunities for guys, nothing scripted, so, it's definitely more like a real game.
And again, Quincy, that's one of the reasons it's important that they get, whatever it is, 2 series, 3 series, a quarter and a half of that final preseason game on Saturday with Brissett and the younger wide receivers. I'm sure not everybody's going to play. Not all the starters are going to play, but a good chunk of them will.
Can you imagine how mad you'd be if you Justin Fields, and you see Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney walk out there like, come on, man, last time we saw each other, this was not fun for me. Why are you doing this to me in the preseason? I want nothing to do with this. It'll be interesting. Myles kind of insinuated that he would play during the interview in the last preseason game, that he wanted to get some snaps, but we'll see. They don't even let him play 5-on-5 basketball anymore. I don't think they're going to let him play in the preseason because what's he going to do, get better? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is the same thing with Clowney. Why would you play Clowney in the preseason? It makes absolutely no sense. So maybe Justin Fields might not be upset when he walks out there, but that offensive line is a mess for the Chicago Bears, and it's going to continue to be one. But yeah, I think it is smart for the offense, especially always, and no matter who's there. Offense definitely needs the reps in the preseason more than I think the defense does. Defense, you get a lot of that through in camp, of the chemistry that you need, being able to run the spots, knowing whose responsibility is what to do during certain route concepts. You can get that working pretty well during practice. But offense, it's just different when there's pressure in your quarterback's face. It just changes everything. It's such a big variable. There's nothing like that on the other side of the ball. So offensively, it's really, really important to get that work in. I kind of am on the side of I wish they would play the starters a little bit more. I understand why Kevin Stefanski doesn't, but I kind of wish we would have more than just a couple of drives in the preseason to get these guys ready.
Yeah, and again, I'm with you. I would like it too, but I get the whole risk-reward thing with the injury concerns. Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
No problem. You have a great day.
All right, Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. He has his own show on YouTube as well. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan straight ahead. We'll continue talking Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns. Browns getting ready for their final preseason game Saturday against the Chicago Bears. This one from Dog Pound Daily. Defensive tackle, definitely an area the Browns looking to upgrade. 3 free agent defensive tackles who could still be pursued by the Browns ahead of the 2022 season. Number 3, Linval Joseph. Number 2, another veteran, Ndamukong Suh. And number 1, Tyler Davison, who is was with the Atlanta Falcons, now a free agent. Let's welcome in Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan. Spencer, I know we've talked about defensive tackles. I don't think the Browns are going to pursue any of those veterans that are free agents currently. Your thoughts? We went Joseph, Suh, Davison. I don't think those kind of fit into what they're doing. I think they'd have already been here if they were going to be here.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that list is fair. It's guys who are out there who have some obviously experience in this league, some more than others. Obviously, Suh being the notable name of the group, and obviously the Browns were linked to Ndamukong Suh right around the time that training camp got started, but those rumors are kind of put to bed. So I for whatever reason, and we've seen this with the wide receiver group too, Dave, they seem very inclined to stick with the guys they have in this on this team and on this roster. That doesn't mean they don't add anybody. I think that roster cut down day, which is coming up obviously in the next week or so, is a big one to watch, where guys get released around the league. Sometimes there's some surprises, and then a team like the Browns could swoop in and grab somebody. So it's not to say they won't do anything, but I agree with you in that these guys who are all still available, probably unlikely that they get added in the next week or before the season, knowing that you have that roster cut down day and knowing that they could have added them by now and they just haven't decided to. So, yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yep, I think they probably have their eye on a couple wide receivers, a couple defensive tackles that if they become available, they may try to claim. This is a Josina Anderson tweet. Keep an eye on how things are going with quarterback Josh Rosen in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski said he will play in the third preseason game. Spencer, my read of it was they're probably looking for a veteran quarterback to bring in, maybe even behind Josh Dobbs. Earlier in the show, we looked at some of the names. It's pretty slim pickings for second and third string quarterbacks around the NFL.
Yeah, this tweet was so bizarre last night. I was having shades of the Brian Windhorst, where he was pointing the two fingers up, talking about the Jazz looming trade that was going to come. That's kind of what it felt like. Like she was trying to kind of allude to something, but none of us knew. She was playing 3D chess with us. None of us know what was going on with this tweet because we're all looking and thinking, what Josh Rosen, like guy who's been the third string quarterback and didn't really look great in the second preseason game. So I'm with you in that. I think she's probably implying that there's probably some sort of movement going on in terms of them looking for a different quarterback to bring in. If you really want to go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, I guess we could say maybe they could move on from Josh Rosen because they're trying to clear space to go make that trade that we've been talking about for several weeks now and go get Jimmy G. But other than that, I have no idea what this could be about. So
yeah, I think my guess is they're looking to bring in a veteran quarterback. But again, we're guessing. But I don't see them. I think it's more likely Josh Rosen gets cut and brought back on the practice squad than anything else with Rosen. All right, Kevin Stefanski talked about the importance of playing time in the final preseason game for everybody, but especially guys that are on that fight to make the 53-man roster.
I think there's still decisions to be made. I think we've tried to use every minute we have to evaluate our players. So this is another opportunity for us to look at our guys in a game setting. So, yeah, I still think their job's up for grabs.
So is the lasting impression the strongest?
It shouldn't be. Yeah, it shouldn't be. It's a body of work.
And again, you kind of balance what you see in preseason and what you see every day because preseason is preseason. But where are some battles that you think still have some things to be determined, if you will?
I honestly, I think for the most part, this roster is mostly set. I think some of the stuff you're looking at is more ancillary down the depth chart a little bit. So, you talk about the receiver position. I certainly think we're all kind of going into this third preseason game wanting to see a little bit more from a guy like Anthony Schwartz and find out where exactly he fits or if he fits in this roster, in their wide receiver rotation. David Bell likely going to start again or get playing time again this weekend, and it'll be the second time we get a chance to see him. So that's certainly a room you're paying attention to. We talked right off the rip here about the defensive tackle position, and I'm still curious to kind of see how some of those rotations are going to work out because I think we kind of know, Taven Bryan is going to be is slotted right now as one of the starters along that group and a guy who's poised for a solid season. I think they have high hopes for Jordan Elliott having a breakout year. But what are we going to see behind those guys? Perion Winfrey has some high expectations. Tommy Togiai in his second year, trying to see him maybe progress a little bit. I think for the most part, you can kind of go up and down this roster and realize who's going to be where, especially on the defensive side and the secondary and along that defensive line. But I'm definitely looking down the depth chart a little bit to see who falls into place as, your second and third string defensive tackles, your wide receivers. What rotation is that going to look like? Even tight end behind Harrison Bryant, because obviously we know David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, the top two guys there, but kind of how that shakes out behind them. And obviously I think we're all watching to see what happens at the quarterback position now that Jacoby Brissett's going to take meaningful snaps for the first time as well. So that'll be something to keep an eye on in this game. But for it's kind of odd, right? Because for so many years with the Browns, we were going into this last preseason game when it used to be 4, now 3, and talking about, well, this position battle and that position battle. When you have a good team like the Browns roster's constructed right now, a lot of this stuff you kind of already know going in, and it really is just, finding the missing pieces of the puzzle that are going to give you the depth that hopefully help you make a playoff run. So it's a little bit different setup with the Browns in recent years than we were used to, I guess, the 2 previous decades before that. But it's a good problem to have.
Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan and I going to step aside, take a quick timeout, other side of the break. Some questions that will be answered in preseason week 3. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan. So 5 big questions for preseason week number 3. This is from Dog Pound Daily. Number 5, what will the Browns do at running back? Number 4, why wait until week 3 to test out Jacoby Brissett? So Spencer, let's knock those 2 off. I think they're keeping all 4 of the running back unless somebody comes and gives them something they think is extremely valuable that can help them win now. I don't think they're trading one of those top 4 running backs.
Yeah, I think they are more inclined at this point to start the season with all these guys on the roster. And then as the season progresses, maybe you get some trade talks picking up for a guy like Dearness Johnson. Maybe even Kareem Hunt if things really go awry and, they're not looking very good with Jacoby Brissett under center and they're struggling and you get to that trade deadline, you're like, well, this guy's, in the last year of his deal, we might as well flip him and get something, especially a team like Cleveland who obviously doesn't have first-round draft picks coming up the next few years. Might be beneficial to sort of stockpile some picks, so that could be a move you make. But I think right now they're more inclined to start the season with all these guys because I think they believe in all of them. I think they all have kind of different skill sets in some regards as well, and they want to have depth at that position, especially given that both Chubb and Hunt were out for decent periods of time last season due to injury.
As far as waiting week 3 with Jacoby Brissett, that's just kind of the way Kevin Stefanski has done it. He hasn't played his starter a lot. And again, think about this: if you go out and he gets hurt in a preseason game, now you either got to go get Jimmy Garoppolo or you're going to see Joshua Dobbs or somebody for 11 games.
Yeah, they've been hedging their bets with this whole situation. They knew that Deshaun Watson's suspension was going to come at some point. They knew, and there was reports on this, I know from Mary Kay Cabot and others, that they knew when they signed Jacoby Brissett to be the backup that they were planning on playing him for some amount of games, whether it was 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know if they thought it was going to be 11, but I think they kind of figured that in some capacity he was going to be out there. So they were trying to play it safe, keep him healthy, keep him on the field. I also just think for this coaching staff, you had your joint practices last week. You probably got work with Jacoby Brissett then that you liked and saw some different things in a more controlled environment. You didn't want to put him out there in a meaningless preseason game and again risk that injury. So I don't have a problem with it. I think sometimes we overblow some of this playing time in preseason games for certain players. Now, I think it's good he's going to play this weekend and at least get some snaps in a live game environment. But, yeah, I think that was probably the smartest move for them in terms of trying to get him ready for the season and make sure that they didn't have any other issues at quarterback behind Deshaun Watson.
All right, so we got 3 more here. Is there still an issue at defensive tackle? Again, these are part of the 5 questions for preseason week number 3. Number 2, Anthony Schwartz on the chopping block, ? And do the Browns need to look at other quarterbacks? Defensive tackle, I know we didn't see the starters last week, but Philadelphia ran the ball right down the Browns' throats. That was concerning in the first part of that game. I know they were backups, but you never want to see that happen.
Yeah, it was not a good game on the defensive line or defensively really at all last week for Cleveland. So that was definitely concerning. Again, you're talking about backups, which, that is what it is. But I would say, yeah, there's still a little bit of concern just because of the depth of that position and how important that is in today's NFL. I mean, these guys rotate a lot at those positions. You got to have a solid cast of characters to bring in and utilized there. So even if you get great performances from Jordan Elliott and Taven Bryan, you're going to probably want some more depth behind them. So I would say it's still an issue. I'm kind of TBD on the starters in those two roles, just to kind of see like, well, hey, maybe they do play well. You don't feel as worried about the starting group, but behind them, yeah, I would say it's still something that needs to be addressed.
Schwartz, I think they wait. You know, he had a nice catch. I like that they got the ball in his hands early, gave him like an end around to try to get him, you know, going and not thinking is basically, I think, why you put the ball in his hands on an end around. Just go play.
Yeah, you're spot on with that, Dave. I think the fact that they went right back to him, Josh Dobbs, who went right back to him after he had another drop, was telling. They're trying to kind of get through and get him past that mental block he's going through. Same stance I had last week. Like, I'm not ready to just say, yeah, get rid of him, cut him, because obviously the coaching staff has confidence in him, and obviously they've seen it at camp that he can get it done. But if he struggles or has another drop this weekend, I don't know how fans are supposed to feel very confident about him going into the regular season, being sort of that deep threat receiver, and he just hasn't lived up to the hype so far. So hoping for the sake of Browns fans, they get a pretty solid performance from him, and that he doesn't have any more drops to add to his resume this weekend, so that there's at least some positive vibes about surrounding him heading into the regular season.
What are your thoughts about looking at another quarterback? I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo guy. If he gets cut, that's a different story. I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo guy at $24 million.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, Dave. I think both of our stances are clear. It's not ideal to go get Jimmy G. I will say, though, like, if you're looking elsewhere, I just don't know where else you go other than Jimmy G. I guess you could talk about maybe Jordan Love in Green Bay, and if that's an option now that Aaron Rodgers signed the extension. But he's the only option to me that feels enticing enough to be like, hey, we're going all in this year because we know we have a good roster. We don't want it to be sort of a punted season, if you will. Not that they're viewing it that way, but it would kind of feel that way. So if you're looking at other quarterbacks, I think Jimmy G is it. Whether or not you want to trade for him or you want to wait to see if he gets cut, that can be up for debate. But I think that's it. Like the market stops there, and I think the Browns feel that way too, where they're not necessarily – we haven't heard a lot about them exploring that trade option. And if they don't, I think they feel comfortable trotting out Jacoby Brissett for better or for worse for us as consumers and fans of this team.
Yeah, I'm with you. Spencer German, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Good stuff, Spencer. Thanks very much.
Always a pleasure, Dave. Take care.
All right, Spencer German, make sure you catch him 92.3 The Fan. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow on Sports for CLE.